It's 1:42 a.m. on the White Plains of Oregon, and you're listening to Night Call. Welcome to Night Call, your companion during these strange days and lonely nights. My name is Emily Yoshida. I am in New York City, and with me on the line in California are
Tess Lynch and
Molly Lambert.
And we are pleased to welcome today a very special guest. He is the chief film critic at Vanity Fair and the author of the new book, All We Can Do Is Wait. We have Richard Lawson.
Yeah, hello. Thanks for having me.
I want to say that Richard is a friend of the podcast, even though our podcast is relatively new, and I'm not sure how many friends it has, but spiritually, I feel like we can consider you a friend.
Yeah, I'm feeling that vibe. So, yeah.
So last week, as you guys will remember, we had our very special episode, our very special haunted special. And afterwards, we put up a poll asking our listeners if they had ever seen a ghost. And it's only been up a few hours at this, as of this recording. You will be listening to this week afterwards, so I'm not sure where it will end up. But I was actually pretty surprised by how high the ghost reports were. We haven't gotten many stories, though.
Yeah, please give us your ghost stories by calling us.
Yeah, or just like respond on the thread. But as of right now, with 384 votes, we have 87% no, but 13%.
87% no is what you're excited about.
Sorry, I started with the wrong. I had the wrong lead. Anyway, 13% yes, which I feel like is high. I feel like that's rather high. It was like around 5% initially, and then it went up to 13, and I was like, really? Like over 1 in 10 people have seen a ghost? I feel so left out, even though I'm in the majority. But
also, like, if there's any more ghost seers in the audience, like, go click on the poll. If it's still, it won't be up anymore at this point.
Richard, have you ever seen a ghost?
I was trying to think about that. I don't think so, but I was just wondering if maybe some of the people saying they've seen it is just that one guy who has that like viral Twitter thread about the little boy ghost in his apartment.
What happened with that? I was following that so closely, and then eventually I thought it was a hoax, and I kind of dropped off. But I know a lot of people were really loyal to that.
Wait,
thread.
Also, Richard, didn't you go to the Overlook?
No, I haven't been there.
Oh.
Maybe it was Ghost Richard.
But yeah, I kind of like read the thread initially and was like, oh, that's creepy. But then it seemed very cynical and like.
Wait, what is? This is a thing
is like
I don't
Dear
know about.
Daniel or something, or is that Damn Daniel?
The ghost of Damn Daniel.
Yeah.
It's like a little boy ghost whose like head is weird shaped, and like there's something about like a kid died in that house or something. I don't know, but he just like was like detailing his many days and nights.
Photographic evidence was the weird thing, but it was the way that he tweeted it out, the way that he kind of like metered his information it really didn't seem right to me from the beginning, because there was a lot of, it would kind of be like, all right, guys. And then a new tweet. I have something really creepy. So if you're easily creeped out, you should not look. And then like next tweet, this is my room. And he was trying to build the suspense, and it kind of worked, but it seemed so he's directing himself. And then there were just kind of creepy blurry things of a little boy with maybe like a deformed face because he had died in a really gruesome way. But I followed it because it was posted on a lot of parenting blogs, which is bizarre, or like little like parenting groups, because parenting groups have a penchant for like creepy ghost stories, like we talked about last week.
Maybe it's also like it's kind of an optimistic thing to think that like
a gruesomely murdered little boy could be haunting your bedroom.
Well, they could come back as a ghost.
I don't think you want them that way.
On the bright side, he came back as a ghost, so
you'll see him again.
That's like Stanley, like Kubrick, like called Stephen King and asked him if he like believed in ghosts, and he was like, said something about like, it's optimistic to believe in ghosts because that means you think life goes on after death.
I guess that's true.
But
I don't think haunting is the most optimistic use of a ghost. I mean, you just want to have them. I mean, maybe it is. I guess it depends on your relationship to them.
Okay, but like if you came back as a ghost, wouldn't you want to just like do all the stuff you already do?
Like just live in my house and make cookies or what? I guess I would. I mean, maybe I'd like to be in Tibet or something and just, live a whole different existence.
We, of course, are still taking any of your ghost stories, you can leave us a message at 1-240-46-NIGHT, or you can send us an email at nightcallpodcast@gmail.com. We are always and forever taking ghost stories, even if it's not Haunted Special Week. But we have a call we want to take right now, or an email rather, from Adam.
We also take emails that are about things that are not about ghost stories at all, and this is one of those. So Adam wrote, I'll take this one because it's for me.
Yeah, and you're so excited about it.
I'm so excited about it. Adam wrote and said, "Dear Night Call, why does Molly think Billy Joel is Italian?"
I wasn't aware that Molly thought that Billy Joel was Italian.
Well, I find out people are Jewish sometimes, and Billy Joel was one of those, and everybody else knew that already. And I was like, I just thought he was Italian because he's from Long Island and
scenes from an Italian restaurant.
And then Tess said,
I said, if he were Italian, it would just be called Scenes from a Restaurant.
Or My Restaurant.
My restaurant.
Scenes from the restaurant that I am.
I was thinking about it last night, though, too, and I realized the real reason I thought Billy Joel was Italian was because of the Keeping the Faith video, which comes up a lot on this podcast.
All the time
and will. Which made me believe he sings about the Catholic girls.
Yes.
And I just thought it was because he was in Catholic school with the Catholic girls, Roman Catholic Italians. I didn't know.
Does it feel a little exoticized, though? In a way that it wouldn't be if he was actually Catholic, Italian Catholic?
Maybe, but just the aesthetics of the video, it made me think, I don't know, maybe
Is it the Isle of Dogs
vibe,
of Long Island Italian
the
Catholicism?
whole vibe of his whole persona to me is so Scorsese-y. Maybe I just think everyone from New York is Italian. Even though
I'm not the person to ask.
We've
Richard, you grew up on this coast in a way that we did not. I have totally admitted my dumbness when it comes to interpreting the East Coast in any form. I'm just bad at it. None of these are things I could decode.
Overlap between all white ethnic minorities, I think, is the real point. They're all kind of. But Billy Joel, I'm proud to call him one of
my question though for Molly is so Molly has hated Billy Joel.
No, I love him
but
now.
But now you love him. But growing up, Molly was very derogatory about everything relating to Billy Joel. She shunned him. She shunned people who liked him. And then all of a sudden she opened her mind. Is that because you were he's not Italian, he's an enigma?
No.
He tricked me.
No.
Why? She came around to Billy Joel, and I was pushing the Keeping the Faith video on her and expected it to make her just want to dissolve in despair.
Okay, that's the thing is Tess and I, we share a lot of overlap of taste in music. But there's certain music that I guess maybe it's a lot of boomer music that wasn't my parents' music, such as Billy Joel and Carly Simon, that just makes me feel so embarrassed.
Yeah.
It's so earnest.
It embarrasses me too.
And
I'm embarrassed
Billy Joel,
for myself.
I was very I was too cool for Billy Joel because it was I was this is so embarrassing to listen to. It's just so
As
so
a child,
earnest.
you were embarrassed to listen to Billy Joel?
Well, I'll also be honest, I didn't find him hot at all. And a lot of what goes into my choice in male rock stars might have to do with how hot they are until a certain point. There are exceptions when people are super talented. But I was also really put off by the whole doo-wop album he made that...
We were talking about River of Dreams.
Yeah, River of Dreams. I hate River of Dreams. Everyone knows that I hate River of Dreams, and I also hate Graceland, everyone else's favorite dad rock album.
What were you going to say, Richard?
What about Oliver and Company?
Oh, I love Oliver and
That's
Company.
the first movie I ever
Joel,
saw in a
guys.
theater.
Really?
That is the first movie that Emily Yoshida ever saw in a theater, and I had to leave halfway through because my friend who was older than me was so scared that she couldn't
and that
finish
friend
it.
was Molly.
What was your first movie?
I don't remember what I do think Ghostbusters was.
Really?
But I
That's
think
a
it must
cool
have been
one.
something before then. But my parents took me to see Glory in the theaters.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
When I was 8. and the head explodes,
No, I don't
Yeah,
know.
so a soldier's head explodes, and my parents leaned over, and both of them at the same time were like, they use a melon, and they explode. It's not his flesh. And I was just I don't know, I'm seeing it though, it's not a melon. It was horrible.
It's a little.
I I saw the Sesame Street movie. Follow that bird.
Can I ask
Richard,
you guys?
what was yours?
Oh, my first movie was probably The Black Cauldron, and I think I hid under my seat the whole time.
Oh, that's a scary
also
one to see
scary.
first,
I was too
also
young.
as an animated movie.
But I wanted to ask you guys a Billy Joel question.
Yes.
If I were to say the phrase, "My dear friend William Joel," would you know what I was referring to?
Yeah.
No, he's Billy.
Yeah, well, so because my dear friend William Joel is this thing that Gwyneth Paltrow wrote, I think, in the early days of Goop.
God, yes, I forgot.
And it was like,
I
just
knew
say
that
Billy
rang
Joel.
a bell.
Like, you can say my dear friend Billy
that
Joel.
was
That's
like
fine,
the
but-
initial, like, oh, this is where we're going with Goop. Is this kind of block? All right.
Well, it's like an extra leveled up name drop. It's like, not only am I doing the name drop, I call him not by his nickname, but by his familiar name.
It's the opposite of calling Scorsese Marty.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
It's like
My good friend Dr. William Joel.
he actually hates to be called Billy. So yeah. No, I totally forgot about that. But yes. She did that with somebody else too. I feel like she had an oddly formal name for them or something, but I can't
She
remember.
knows
who
them
it is.
all, but as a child, it's, she can call him William. Guys, Billy Joel is great. Also, maybe it's just like as an LA person, I was a little bit like, I don't know about New York state of mind, guys. But then, you get into the sort of, it's like,
Well, that's how I
Cheers.
feel about Empire State of Mind. I refuse
Well,
to
Empire
stand
State
for
of
that
Mind
anthem.
Is terrible, but also like it makes me laugh so
Yeah.
much because I'm like, this. I hear it every time I'm in New York, and
Yeah.
I'm like, haha.
They play
You
it
hear
for
it
you as you
every
come
time
down the
you're in New
escalator.
York?
Yeah, because they play it there.
I know
They really
play
do.
it I know they play it in New York, but I mean, wouldn't it be funny if just like every place you went, it was just Empire State of Mind in New York? It's like the law, Empire State of Mind.
It's always playing in my head when I'm in New
It's
York.
kind of a moving song.
No, it's not.
It's if you can get yourself like past a lot of hurdles, you can be moved by that song. Why deny yourself the pleasure?
It's so opportunistic.
It
Well,
is.
let's. We wanted to talk a little bit about something that Richard is in a broad way, in a broad sense. Just the phenomenon of thirst traps.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And
Lovers.
food Instagrams. We wanted to put these
Well,
together because they're
yeah.
sort of
food and drink.
they're things that make you drool
I
online.
mean,
Yeah.
I feel like there's very little difference between once somebody really starts getting in, like your friends who suddenly start getting really invested in taking the perfect pictures of their meals, and the person who starts taking like perfect pictures of themselves. I feel
they
like
often go together.
yeah, sometimes.
Well, that's like the Goop lifestyle. The people that are like, look at my quinoa.
Yeah.
Here I am on the beach.
I feel like I can think. We'll have to be very like I know somebody who in this entire discussion.
No, I like food Instagrams that are actually about food where people, I mean, there's like it's a very fine line because I like something very specific, I feel like.
Well, wait, Richard, you mentioned that you're gonna start taking some serious cooking this spring. You're gonna get real because you got the Dutch oven.
I got the Dutch oven for Christmas. Yeah. It's very heavy.
And then that was inspired by a couple of Bon Appetit bloggers.
Oh, yeah. So I started watching Bon Appetit's YouTube videos, which are great. And there's this guy, Brad Leone, and this woman, Carla Music, and a couple others. And they're just like really charming, and they make cool things that seem like possible and accessible. So I became kind of obsessed with them. And then inspired by that, I've been like going to renew my cooking, which has been dormant for a number of years.
What's your favorite thing to cook?
Easy things, stuff that's like one pot, because also like I live in New York and don't have a dishwasher, so that affects cooking. And I'm also womp like cooking for one. So
Do you like a stew? Everyone likes a
a
stew.
stew is
Takes a
good.
lot to make a
I
stew.
also have an immersion blender now, so I can
Oh
make
my God.
soup.
Immersion blender. Honestly, I have like a list of 5 things that are the best investments I've ever made in my life. And an immersion blender is one of them. The number one is a NutriBullet. Both of them basically do the same thing, but in different directions. But the immersion blender is so huge. Like
Yeah.
Do you guys have the Cuisinart one? The Cuisinart immersion blender? That's the one I have.
I have the
think it's
Braun
Cuisinart.
one, 7
Oh, no,
speed.
maybe mine's Braun. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've all gotten really into food and making food because I feel like everyone's gotten really into cooking and makeup because they're like things you can control.
Yeah.
In
And
a
it's like a
world full
form
of
of
chaos.
self-care and also like just a process that you have to go through.
And there are things you can show,
Yeah.
because I was like, there's all this like literature about how young people are traveling more and going out to eat more. And it's not because they want to go to Paris or they want to eat at this restaurant. It's because they want to take an Instagram
Yeah, they
photo
want
of
the
it.
pictures.
So it's like something good is coming out of maybe a bad impulse, which is interesting.
Right. Yeah, there is a kind of, I think with both the skincare thing and the food thing, they're notably not like, it's not like people are really upset. I mean, some people are. Like, I have taken a picture of a fancy cocktail in my life, but it's like there's a virtue to it. It's like, I'm doing this thing that's good for me. What are you doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, I can't follow certain, like, the people that just, like, not everybody, because some people I, like, find it charming. Again, it depends on the person. But people who are like, I'm just eating a different fancy meal every day, I'm not that interested in, unless it's, like, somebody in, like, Hong Kong, and then I'm like, I want to see what are all at these restaurants that, like, I can't go to. But if it's somebody in, like, LA posting, like, a different crazy meal every day, sometimes I'm like,
right. Well,
go eat something boring.
You know what I think is gross is the posting of the bowls. I don't like the phenomenon of the bowls.
Oh, you don't like the smoothie bowl? Let's
you
fight
mean
about
like
smoothie bowls.
you mean like an acai bowl?
Like
It's
the
very like that
grain
feels
bowls.
very mid-O's now. That feels like a very like period food.
I know
Like-
it's getting kind
Well,
of
it's like it was Chipotle, right?
Chipotle does it. I mean, there are a bunch
Oh,
of ones
that
out
kind
here
of
where
bowl.
it's like, yeah, the
Everything.
like grain on the bottom, vegetables, and then a tiny bit of protein. But I find that they don't photograph great for me. I'm getting a lot of promoted ads that are for the bowl.
and they're not appetizing.
They're not appetizing the bowl.
They're like
you-
some shredded kale.
I love a bowl.
Me too. It's easy.
I love
It's
a
all
bowl.
there. in
It's
one
and
thing.
I think this is also. Although I will say, I did a lot of bowl based cooking in LA too. It's just like an easy thing to do where you can like prepare a bunch of separate ingredients and then put them together in the morning. Like use your weekend to cook your individual ingredients and then put it together over the course
They
of the
don't
week.
have. There's no sauce element that's like enough for the grains on the bottom. It's a very dry and dense.
Oh, you gotta make
foundation.
a sauce.
You have to, but the amount of sauce, because then the grain soaks up the sauce, and then you've got this leaden thing. But I'm sorry.
Can I
But so,
recommend
wait,
some food Instagram? Wait, I want to recommend like my 3 favorite food Instagrams.
Yeah.
Cara Brown has a food Instagram that she sometimes does. That's a blog also called Fancy Pasta Bitch, where she makes pasta by hand and tests it out, and it always looks amazing. And she writes about like trial and error too, which I also like in a food blogger is when they're like, I fucked this up, but next time I'm going to not do this thing. And I really like Allison Roman, who I feel like everybody likes.
Yep.
Who's an actual food writer, cook person who has a great Instagram where she just put out a cookbook and she posts like other people making the recipes from her cookbook, which is very enjoyable to watch. And my friend Elisa DePrato, who does these like crazy dinners in New York that are like Italian themed around like the vernal equinox and stuff like that. She posts a lot of amazing Italian food making stuff. It's very beautiful to look at.
Well, Richard, what do you think? What is it about these particular people that you're fixated on that make them like good Instagram or like social media food personalities?
They have expertise, but they're not like showy about it. It's very like, familiar and friendly. I think that some of like the really high end kind of food bloggers or Instagram people, like, do you guys know Loco Kitchen? Loko.
Yes.
It's this a woman who makes these pies that are like really intricately. Lauren Coe is her name, and she's very popular on Instagram. And they're beautiful to look at, but it's like I'm never going to do that, and
Right.
so I just find it a little off-putting in a way.
It's like just an object at that point. It's not like a thing that you can. It's not a call to action,
Right,
as we
exactly.
say in the biz.
Exactly. Whereas I
Sometimes
can
you see something and you're like, I'd like to eat that.
Right.
But I don't think I could be capable of making it.
Yeah, it's a little daunting. I mean, whereas like I can definitely throw some shit in a bowl. So
yeah,
I'm
this
happy
is
to-
just like visual art. I'm looking at it now.
yeah.
I mean, it looks fantastic.
And a lot of the pies that she photographs, they're not cooked yet because
Yeah.
of that. Like the dough gets kind of
you can't have the perfectly clean edged dough like once it's actually cooked.
yeah.
But I mean, it's a nice.
That's not Martha Stewart style, but I feel like even Martha Stewart, like in real life, it doesn't look like
It looks
that.
like
That's
pasta.
Yeah, these people are doing like food photography. Like I mean, I feel like also sometimes things that don't look that great are what taste the best, in my opinion. So,
Sloppy stews.
Every time
just
every time I
things-
cook up a stew,
yeah, you guys get that stew. Well, I like Emily. You've good food Instagrams. We've all been doing this recently because we all just like chopping. It's very like meditative. It's a thing that's not looking at a screen. It's nice to do.
yeah.
I've had some really epic failures in cooking recently. That
Really?
stuck with. Well, I'll never top my husband deciding to make creamed spinach in 2007, I think. And he bought it literally was maybe 4.5 hours of him just like screaming at the pots, because with creamed spinach, you have to get like just so much spinach to make a bowl of creamed spinach, and he didn't realize. So he was like being a perfectionist, like deveining each leaf of spinach.
Oh my God.
And then he's going to kill me for
spinach has veins.
Well, it's just like he was taking his time. He was just being like, trying to really like give it his all. And he made a ramekin of creamed spinach after all that time. But there have been 2 times now where I've cooked giblets in the turkey.
No.
And then what?
It's in the bag. And then I don't want to say, so don't push me. And then it was fine. And then I replaced the turkey with a different turkey that I fed people, and I cooked it really fast.
Wait, was this Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Were you in a Friends episode?
Or a Mr.
Sadly,
Bean
no.
episode? Well, speaking of giblets, on a separate but related note, I feel like, I guess what we're talking about is like people who have like made a project out of their social media. And we talk about this like semi-frequently on this podcast.
Because everybody on some level has made a project out of their social media at this point.
Just like how you subconsciously or consciously self-brand. And I feel like a good way to put it is like losing a friend to a thirst trap, or like losing a friend to their own thirst trap or something.
Well, again, it's that desperation, the Billy Joel thing that made me uncomfortable, is like the feeling of someone being so desperate makes me uncomfortable. But sometimes I feel for them.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a phenomenon just relegated to like gay Instagram, where I spend a lot of my time, sadly. But like, there's someone I know, not that well, but I've been watching him over the past couple of months on Instagram slowly like realize that, like, not realize that he's good looking, but like put it together that fact and the fact of Instagram can be combined into something. Yeah. And so gradually every single picture, like he's now in every single one. They're not necessarily always selfies, but like he's just inched himself further and further into the frame of all of his Instagrams. And it's a little sad. I don't know. But it's a weird thing to watch.
It's a very strange thing to figure. I mean, I can't really imagine this because, all of us kind of came of age before this stuff was around. But like, instead of realizing it in the mirror or realizing it like based on reactions of other people, like how you fit in the world or how people react to you, like having this number that can go up or down based on the angle of your face and something, it just feels so like I would be obsessed with it if I was a 16-year-old.
Well, it's like, it's so dangerous feeling to tie your self-esteem to like how many likes you get. And obviously a lot of people do that. But also, I don't, I'm at the same time, I'm like, do whatever when,
Oh, absolutely. And I think, I've noticed that like on my own Instagram, I almost never post photos of myself. But on the occasion that I do, I get like 2 times the number of likes than I would for like, picture out of an airplane window or whatever.
And part of it's just like people like a face. People like a face. No matter how hot or how airbrushed the face is, like people like to see a human face. Like that's why you go to Instagram instead of Twitter sometimes. Like, I mean, it's not the only reason, but it's one of the things that you can get more reliably on Instagram than you can get on Twitter is like, what do my friends look like right now? Because I see them now that like we're working all the time or whatever. I see them maybe once a week if I'm lucky.
Well, I think maybe it tricks you into it, especially for, people of our generation who are, it's weird to us on some level, I think still that we communicate mostly virtually. It's not something that we grew up with. And so I think it almost normalizes that a bit for us because you're staring at a face that you're communicating with. So it feels more, it's kind of a throwback. But Richard, I've always been really interested in your relationship to the internet, because you're sort of shrouded in mystery, but you also write pretty openly, but it's true. Like you were never like a gratuitous picture of yourself Wednesday particularly.
Richard replaced his avatar on Twitter for the first time. And I feel like ever.
Yeah, it's the first time ever.
So I was
It's
gonna
not
say, you
Neil
look
Hamburger for the first time in years.
I think you made subconsciously people associate your image with Neil Hamburger, which was a choice you made.
I'll confess to you guys about why I made that.
Yes, I want to know everything about this decision.
Because I was like,
this is a night call exclusive.
In the same way that I will never like a tweet. I have 0 faves on Twitter. I was very adamant about not changing that picture because it was my MySpace photo in like 2005.
Oh my God,
and then it
nice.
became my Gawker commenter photo, and then this. But the reason I decided to change it was I was out with friends, gay friends, at a gay bar, and one of my friends knew someone at the bar who I didn't know, and we were introduced, and he was like, "Oh, I thought you were like this like 50-something-year-old man." And I was like, that's why I'm not getting dates off of Twitter. So not to say that the picture of me is much better, but like it's at least a little bit better.
Would you really want to date
Richard?
anybody off of Twitter though who wouldn't recognize that as Neil Hamburger?
That's a good point.
It's like a little bit.
I mean, my standards are pretty low at this point, so like maybe I would, but it's funny because I got like reaction from it, like and I think that
Because everybody was like, Richard, you're a babe. You're so self-deprecating online. And I was totally like, Richard's a babe. Congratulations on being a babe. I mean, I think that's also for people of our generation. Like, as soon as I find myself like judging people for posting too many selfies, I feel like a billion years old. And I'm like, this is stupid. Who cares? Like I maybe consciously started posting more selfies because I was totally a person who was always like, I'm a brain in a jar. And like my face doesn't exist on the internet except on like my private accounts. But yeah, it's fine to have a face.
Yeah.
That's your face in real life. When people see you in real life, that's the face they see.
And intention matters, like I have some friends who post a lot of selfies and I know that they're sort of just doing it to be whatever. Mm-hmm. It's the ones that really bother me. And this is kind of what I see this acquaintance kind of moving toward is the stuff that's like supposed to be like, oh, look at me, like just so innocent, but like it's geared at making people feel jealous and sad,
What are the earmarks of that? Like what tips you off that it's, you're like, oh, I feel bad about this and here's
like,
why.
I'm at some fabulous place that you're not.
Yeah, that's part of it, but it's also
these fabulous people.
One of the tropes I see is like a morning selfie, and it's like, oh, look how ridiculous my hair is, and their hair looks great, and they just like have the perfect like bedroom eye, and you're just like, well, that's why you posted it, So either just go full tilt into that and be like, I love my hair today. Don't like the fake self-deprecation really bothers me.
I love the look at this crazy bathroom selfie.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm at this fancy hotel bathroom or at like a 5-star restaurant or whatever. It's so crazy in here, but here's me in a cute outfit. I don't hate that. I just like it's a genre.
Also, boyfriend selfies.
Everybody needs like approval from the world a little bit, and I think those people are mostly really lonely and sad, honestly.
Well,
like when somebody's posting a lot, like whenever Kim Kardashian starts posting a lot of thirst traps, that's when I'm like, she's having problems at home because
maybe she just loves the way she looks.
Attention. Yeah, but it's like there was a spike recently where she was suddenly doing. Maybe that was also because Kylie was like surpassing her.
They say that the cleanliness state of your bedroom is a marker of your psychological state. So like if your bedroom's a mess, you're like something's going on in your life. At least that's what I've always told myself. So maybe the Instagram is now a marker of that. Like, I think that's a good theory.
Well, I always used to say my like, I feel like I made this up myself, or I feel like I put this on Tumblr at one point, but I think about it a lot is like people always take pictures of the things that they're afraid of losing. which is why you take selfies, or just like not. I mean,
because you're losing your youth, and you're like, this is the
or
youngest
like
I'll
you're
ever be.
losing track of your actual. Like, I mean, there are fewer markers for like what was the state of mind I was in. I mean, honestly, this is kind of embarrassing, but I take a lot of pictures with the photo booth on my laptop, and they're just like if I'm writing and I'm bored, and then I'm like, I'm gonna take some selfies because like the light is nice in my kitchen right now, and then if I can go back, I can just see tons of like that's what I have instead of a journal now, and it's very it's not something I'm sharing with anybody, but it's just like this. It's like one record of self, and there are periods of time where I don't do them at all too, which are also very conspicuous. But yeah, it's totally a weird.
Do you feel like you do it more when you're feeling introspective?
I feel like I do it more. I feel like I do it more when I'm feeling better about myself, but also am bored. Like, it's got to be this weird kind of confluence of things. I don't know.
Have you ever heard something on the news and wondered if there was more to the story? Have you ever yearned for a peek behind the curtain into the murky, hidden world just past the edges of those official statements? From UFOs to stories of ghosts and government cover-ups, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now, or join Ben, Matt, and Noel as they dive headfirst into the world's strangest rabbit holes, separating fact from fiction, asking questions like, what exactly is sleep paralysis? Have we finally discovered the science behind ghosts? Did the CIA really experiment on U.S. citizens? Why do we eat bacon for breakfast? How long has the Pentagon been hunting UFOs? Did people really find a mass grave at Benjamin Franklin's house? That one's new to me. Tune in each week as the guys apply critical thinking to conspiracy theories, allegations of the paranormal, government cover-ups, and more in Stuff They Don't Want You to Know.
I'm doing a terrible new version of selfies lately, which is hair loss selfies. So like a lot of pictures of the top of my head, which is like terrifying.
But one's for yourself, for your own.
Oh
records.
yeah, no, I'm not sending them out in the world. No, I'm just like how's the Rogaine working, or whatever. It's really sad, but
Oh, I had to do a similar thing because I have like when you're pregnant, you can get this thing called melasma where you get like kind of a weird uneven tan on your face that never goes away from hormones. And I was like, ooh, this is kind of interesting. Like, I'll take pictures and see how it fades over time. And then after a year, I was like, oh, look, it doesn't fade at all.
Oh, no.
But now I'm a year older. But then I also realized I was, I think I was a big picture poster on Tumblr. So I was like super vain in my 20s in retrospect, where I was just
that was what Tumblr was for. Come on.
So vain. It was, yeah. But it's like, it's just
who are we being like, oh, we didn't take selfies. Like, we did had our 20s to take selfies.
It was just on a different platform.
Time.
Yeah.
I am ashamed of how thirsty I was. I don't even know what I wanted out of it. But then at a certain point, I just really stopped caring. And then I just became kind of fascinated by how my body is decomposing.
You wanted a boyfriend. And that's the thing, too.
No, Molly, this is after I was like married, and I was like, I'm looking pretty great, just staring off a balcony, and I'm just going to put my camera over here and do a timer.
Look, it's all cute in retrospect.
Is it?
Yes, I think so. Guys, we should take another night email.
Yeah.
Let's pull up this night email from our friend Gavin.
All right, Gavin.
Tess, you want to give us our night email?
Yes, I will. This is a night email from Gavin. Wild Wild Country just started, and I recently started rewatching the underappreciated True Detective Season 2, which has a cult in it.
Oh my God,
the closest experience I had with any kind of cult other than the Catholic Church was with David Lynch, Donovan, and Transcendental Meditation. I was a student, and these guys and Bob Roth came to Belfast to talk up TM. It was a strange and also sort of awesome experience. Bob Roth talked, Lynch talked, and Donovan played a short set. He played Hurdy-Gurdy Man, and Zodiac came out that year, so it was doubly fucking awesome. And I came out of it sort of seeing the appeal of joining something that seemed like it knew what was up. I have too much of the Groucho Marx mindset about the thing of never wanting to join, and also Catholic experience makes me automatically suspect. Right now, it feels like the end of the world every day. I see the appeal of cults. What do y'all think?
Well, thank you, Gavin. You have not watched Wild Wild Country yet, Richard, so I don't want to spoil too much of it. But I will just say I haven't watched all of it either, so I don't really know how it ends. I don't know how everybody has watched it also. It's a lot of show. Anyway, in the first episode of it, I legitimately, and I don't have this reaction very often, was like, I would have fucking joined this cult. It looks fun.
I think we all would have. It looks super fun.
No.
During like the first days, or maybe it was like right after the election, or like right before the inauguration or something, I tweeted something like, I'm about 6 months of the news cycle away from joining a cult. Like, because I just feel like I can understand, because I watched the first part of Wild Wild Country, and I was like, yeah, there is a sort of like ecstatic appeal to it, just like giving yourself into it.
Yeah. And especially when you see how like mad the older generation is about it, you're like, well, yeah, like our values are completely different. There is like this need for some different kind of approach to life. I think the difference is that like that being the time that it was, it being, still post 60s stuff basically that they're running off of. I feel like we are so jaded that like I think that any move or impetus we would have towards joining a cult has kind of been trampled on a little bit.
They say this was after Jonestown, though.
It was, which is very
the big kind of bubble popper for the cult movement.
Yeah, which is why I feel like, that's why this became such a huge deal, I feel like. But
I was saying also, like, when you watch the documentary, because it takes place in rural Oregon, is where this group sets up their utopian city, and they build it all without permits, and everybody gets really mad at them for building a city. But the real undertone is like xenophobia and white people in Oregon being like freaked out by this cult.
Definitely for the first couple episodes. I'll say that. But yeah.
One of the things that interests me about cults is that theoretically you could take, especially cults where, for instance, certain infamous Los Angeles based cults, you can access pretty much all of the information online. You never have to really join the cult or even speak to a cult member, and you can take the good or you can try the approach without actually becoming a member of the cult, and you're only beholden to yourself and kind of trying out a new set of beliefs. Mm-hmm. So in Wild Wild Country, what's really interesting is, it's the enigmatic kind of leader, which I think everybody who is in the cult falls in love with this really charismatic person who also keeps some of himself away from you. So you have to keep kind of ascending the ranks. It's interesting to erase that from the equation. Then it's not a cult. It's just kind of an experiment.
You mean without the charismatic figurehead, you mean?
Well, even if you view them at a remove, it's interesting. I watched the first episode of Wild Wild Country, and I haven't gone further, but I intend to. But the secretary, Sheila, is talking about, and I am going to look at my notes.
Notes.
So the leader of the Rajneesh movement is Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. And so this is the movement that's featured in Wild Wild Country. And so Sheila, when she first, I think it was maybe when she first met him, or maybe, an early encounter between them.
She was like 16 years old, she says. And her parents took her to see him. Yeah.
Yes. And eventually, she's still very young. She kneels at his feet and he looks her in the eye. And I don't know that he's ever spoken words to her before. And he said, "You are in love with me and I am in love with you."
Oh, that was actually later once she had joined up with them. But yes, that's like a super fucking intense thing to say to somebody.
And she kept, every time she talks about him, there's a moment when she says, like, tears were rolling down my cheeks. And I was like, it's interesting because that to me that's the cult. That's the negative part of it. But you could just
do the intentional living community thing.
And the hyperventilating and the primal scream. I see the benefit in all of that.
Right.
This is where I have to prompt Tess to tell her primal scream story.
Well, no, this is according to family legend, and I should have fact checked this before I came, but my parents have claimed that we were neighbors with a primal scream therapist, and that as a young infant, I was raised listening to the primal screams.
What does it do? What does it do if you catch the radiation from primal scream therapy? Not if you're doing it yourself, but if you're getting
if you're just
the
being
noise
primal
pollution.
screamed at.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're probably like, oh, there's other babies.
Right.
Oh, more babies live on this block.
That's like the woo-woo version of the Clarice Starling's Silence of the Lambs story about,
Exactly.
can you still hear the primal screams of the people next door?
So much healing was going on next to me.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm only like a couple episodes in, and I know that they start doing some bad stuff to the locals eventually, But they really make you feel for the cult because the locals are dicks about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, it's easy to relate to the former cult members because they're all extremely smart.
Well, they all
seeming.
feel like our parents, honestly.
Yeah.
They're all boomers who were like burnt out. I mean, the yuppie lawyer guy, like Tess was saying, like you just feel like you've met that guy
totally.
before. He's like the yuppie lawyer who was like, this is enough. Like I'm going to join a cult. And he's they're also self-aware about it. And it's weird because they're all just like, we promote individualism. And that's why we all had to like join together and wall ourselves off from the world.
Well, it's also, I mean, it's based in open marriage. They didn't really love marriage or having children. It was a lot of polyamory, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
I think there are
totally
marriages,
understand.
but yeah, it was.
They had open marriages
Yeah.
because they like asked that woman, like, what's it like being in an open marriage? And she's like, it's chill. You understand like why people were like, these regular things aren't working. Let's like try other things.
Right.
And then like maybe those things don't work either, but like the regular thing still wasn't working for anyone either.
It's kind of a bummer because I feel like the equivalent that we have now in response to all of the stresses we have is one, food Instagrams, but two, like kind of witchy capitalism or something, or like consumerist witches.
Well, it's also interesting that they were like, you know, using all this sort of like socialist rhetoric, but then they were like, we're also going to like make lots of money as a like commentary on the divide between spirituality, which seems very like once they start being like, also we're going to make lots of money, that's when you should start getting suspicious. Definitely.
Yeah. But I just feel like there's like a limitation. Like I think that maybe the part about a cult that does not appeal to me is having this charismatic leader that you have to like gather around, and every word from his mouth, and it's usually a guy, let's be real, is sacred, and that does not appeal to me. But like the idea of an intentional living community, I mean, I have talked to many of my friends and had very serious conversations about like, what would it take? What would we do? Like, I think that it's very much a conversation that people are willing to have right now. It is so
but I
wrapped
also
up in
talk to my parents who remember all their friends that joined intentional communities and how they all went awry in various ways.
Oh, I mean, but my mom was in one, and like it was fine, I think.
Emily, what if that charismatic leader was Andrew Keegan?
I was going to say, Emily, what if it was you?
What if I was the leader?
Yeah.
No, fuck no. I wouldn't want to be the leader of a cult. Are you kidding me? So much responsibility.
Does anyone ever plan to become the leader of a cult, or does it just happen? So
yeah, no, I feel like there's like a mystery origin of the Bhagwan in this documentary, just because it's like, so we kind of meet him in media res. He's already kind of a thing. It's like,
they also kind of never show him talking. So I looked up his philosophy because I was like, what are they all so enamored of? And his philosophy is very like Nietzschean. It's very like, you're dying every moment, so you're living every moment.
Yeah.
Like some of the stuff is totally interesting and good, and you can see why people would be drawn to it because it is very like stuff you discover on like a psychedelic trip of like, you know, egolessness. But then people were saying like, why does somebody who promotes egolessness also like
drive
form an entire
Rolls Royce
cult around themselves? And I feel like people who lead these cults are sometimes sort of like, it doesn't really matter what they're like, you know, they just get the people going.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
speaking of which, let's talk about Nexium.
Oh, yeah. So you guys are going to have to fill me in on this because I have no idea.
Richard, fill Emily in on what happened with Nexium.
Well, I don't.
Isn't that a prescription drug or something?
This is spelled
this
weird.
one's called like NXIVM.
Yeah, and it's just pronounced Nexium.
Is that Roman numerals?
It's fake Roman numerals.
But like, yeah, so it's been this thing that's been going on for a while now. Like, I don't know, at least since like 2003, but it's this thing that got attention from the broader public because an actress from Smallville, Allison Mack, is found to be like heavily involved in it. There was a long New York Times article about how the people in this kind of sex cult were being branded and abused and all that. And it was supposed to be, you know, as all cults are for the most part, like self-help and sort of, you know, all that. But yeah, so this Smallville actress is in it, and another one was also in it for a little while, but she's since left and disavowed any of their teachings. But it's pretty insane because like you think of a WB show, a kind of like cheery little thing, and then like a real dark, you know, where are they now?
There was something like this There's like a community in Venice. Do you guys want to talk about that had like an actor who was involved? Or
Yeah,
like,
that's the Andrew Keegan one that.
oh
Bridget
yeah,
was
yeah. I
talking
was
about.
sorry.
They got in trouble though for making like unlicensed kombucha.
Wait, what?
Yeah, for real.
That's how they got
That's
all
how
of
I'm
them,
gonna
too.
go down. In the end.
These people in Nexium got in trouble because they were like kidnapping people's kids into the cult. Basically, it was like a mom who was on a soap opera, was trying to find her daughter, and her daughter had like cut off all contact. She was in the cult, and they were in upstate New York, and they were branding people.
I remember the branding. But wait, the kombucha belongs to Andrew Keegan's cult?
Yeah.
So unlicensed kombucha?
Yeah.
Damn.
There's always some scandal in Venice going down about like room temperature, like unpasteurized milk beans.
People selling stuff out of the back of their car.
That's that hippie fake capitalism. That's the thing. It's like all this new age wellness stuff is like when it starts costing them money, then it's not really like cool anymore.
I do
it's
think
just selling you more stuff.
I think it's interesting that like when we do hear about like semi-public figures or semi-famous figures being involved in cults, they're almost always actors. I feel like you're not really going to hear about like athletes or something involved in a cult, which feels like that would also make sense in a way. But yeah,
it centers on like the self, and that's what happened. Is like the 60s, dream fails. You can't change the world, so people start focusing on like I'm gonna make my body perfect and like get into fitness and health and wellness and all this goop stuff that is just about is narcissism essentially.
I was watching because I was on a Elliot Gould kick recently. I watched Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice,
I love
which
that
is
movie.
on Filmstruck, which I have a trial to right now. This isn't an ad for Filmstruck, but I have a couple
also
notes
sponsor us, Filmstruck.
Use promo code kombucha.
Yeah, spoiled kombucha. But yeah, I like the whole beginning of that where they're at like the like faux Esalen type retreat. I was also like, this feels like something that it feels incredibly contemporary that like any number of people that I know now would go and do. Like it doesn't feel that far-fetched or like, a woo-woo like 70s thing that people are doing.
There's one of those in New York.
sorry.
In New York, there's a damn it, I'm not going to remember the name of it, but they have Subway ads, and it's like just classes, and it's like it's sort of like
the school of like practical psychology.
Yes,
I've heard that's
I've heard this.
sketch.
It's kind of a cult,
Yeah.
And like I have friends who have like done classes there, and so I feel like there's a gradient,
It's just so unfortunate because why do they always end up being that? Like I feel like.
People go mad with power.
Well, when I moved to New York and I started seeing those ads, I was like, that sounds nice.
Sure, yeah.
Like I'm interested in that practical philosophy. Like who doesn't want to have some practical philosophy?
I want to feel better. Like that's a pretty normal impulse.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that once it gets to a point where, and maybe this is part of the reason that it's actors, because like, acting is one of those things where like you kind of can't do it unless someone asks you to do it,
Yeah.
And so you're always kind of
you need a
dependent
director.
on.
You're looking for guidance, and a lot of people are looking for
Whereas
guidance.
athletes, like you could do a pickup basketball game or you could play baseball in a field. Like, I don't know.
You can't. It's hard to just like act on your own if you're not being cast or chosen by people. Like still being told that you're special.
And then if you're acting alone in your apartment, you're probably in a cult anyway. So
The cult of one.
I mean,
if you guys were designing an intentional community that would be a good place, what would you want it to be like?
Well, I mean, I actually think like just doing the farming part or like having like being able to produce your own food or everything seems super appealing to me. I mean, not so much being cut off from like the community, but just being able to be sustainable in that way feels like nice. I don't know.
So you just want to live in LA and have like an orange tree.
Don't make me homesick.
One of the things that always was a problem in old intentional communities, and I don't know if any of you guys read Drop City, the T.C. Boyle book about a commune, but this is like just something I've heard a lot, is that like the women would get stuck doing all the housework while the men do all the like cool stuff. And that happens in co-ops a lot. So my solution is like a femdom commune where the men have to do all the housework and domestic labor, and then the women like till the land.
Like the men do the child rearing. Yeah.
Yeah. The men do all the childcare. The women make speeches.
I feel like if the men did the childcare, then that would almost be like a natural form of birth control too. Like,
have you guys seen Wanderlust?
Yes. Yeah.
I love Wanderlust because I feel like it's like the Gen X 60s commune movie.
I remember Wanderlust being much better than I thought it was going to be.
It's really good. If you watch it again, it's very in that. I feel like it is kind of in that Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice thing where it's like making fun of something, but it really gets at something that you're like, this is real.
Yeah.
Like, what are the options for like, do you have to just do the thing or can you like try other things?
Yeah.
I think a lot of old people too, because I think boomers are getting old, they want to like live around other people. They don't necessarily want to just like be in their house forever.
Whoa, way to shade the boomers.
No, I'm just saying, like, I think they're like interested in trying, like, I think it's silly. That
Would your parents want to live in a commune?
Yeah, probably.
I don't even think my parents like eating at communal tables, and neither do I, frankly. I mean, it's interesting, like, it's interesting to talk about. It's hard to imagine a commune that I think would be like a lot of fun to live on for more than 2 months.
A lot of people who like live with their whole extended families, which is communal, certainly, but maybe not as appealing.
Well, that's the other thing is that like we don't really have that in our culture as much of like living with your family or like staying in the home for a long time. So I feel like a lot of it is like an overreaction to like trying to regain some of that. It's like, well, I don't live in a house with like 4 generations of my family, so I'm going to like create that to. Like,
I just feel like it's hard enough to have like one roommate, let alone like
I'm
20.
terrible at room. As soon as I could afford to not have roommates, I stopped having roommates.
We're all like, let's live in a house with 500
like,
people.
No,
like,
no. I honestly, I couldn't really do it practically. The appealing part of me to me would be like the practical, just like sharing resources and everything. But I honestly would go crazy within 2 days. Like
When I was graduating from college, so like 2 years ago,
Us too.
I had this thing where I was like, my dream would be to someday like buy a vineyard like in Napa or something and like open a theater. There goes a theater major, like, and we'll do plays and we'll have wine.
Oh my
and I was like,
God.
and like friends could come live there. And I realized I was slowly building some sort of weird like theater cult thing for
that sounds
rich people.
amazing though.
You're kind of selling us on this.
Like, everyone could like get to do whatever play they wanted, and
that's how you make your money.
Yeah,
that's your macrame necklace
Exactly.
or whatever the good is.
You know
that
what?
You
This is making me realize that our utopian socialist dream community is Golden Girls.
Well, no, totally. No, that's
They
the
didn't
thing.
put on plays.
But they had adventures all the time.
It's true, they did.
I know that 3 out of 4 of us are in committed relationships right now, but honestly, it sounds great to me to like be in a voluntary convent right now.
Just
Like,
nobody's stopping you, Emily. Live your dreams. Don't watch out for Katy Perry because
she's going to come for your house.
We should move on to the final night email.
yeah, we've got
also.
one last night email also related to Wild Wild Country. This is a hot show, guys. It's, two brothers doing it again on Netflix, making hot content.
Wait, isn't it 4 brothers?
4 brothers. It is actually,
No,
yeah.
It's 6 brothers.
There's 6 brothers. There's like
Too many brothers.
Yeah, too many bros.
Sounds like a musical.
Yeah.
Who wants to read this night email?
Sure, I can read it.
Okay, cool.
But this person does not want to share their name.
We're calling them Mrs. Footer.
Mrs. Footer. Yeah. Okay, so this is also Wild Wild Country. I think it's in the 2nd episode. She says, when Bill Bowerman, who's one of the founders of Nike, comes into the picture, she says, there's a photo of Bill Bowerman wearing an old Nike shirt and the logo was 4 swooshes making up a swastika. I had to pause it and stare at it and discuss it forever. Okay, I was stoned. It's weird because Bowerman had fought in World War II and had negotiated a stand down with the Germans, which means he's definitely noticed if his swooshes looked like a swastika. Also, he's from Oregon, where white people are super racist. Anyway, in reading about the stupid swoosh, I ran into gems like the original color scheme of Nike's branding, which were red and white because red was for energy and white was for purity, and the goddess Nike protecting those who fight for the motherland. The fact that this one photo is the only thing I can find on the internet with the 4 swooshes, but it's obviously a real Nike shirt, and a moment in the branding history seems kind of like Nike paid a lot of money to bury it off the record. Anyway, I think everyone's a Nazi. The end. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Footer. I did not notice this in the doc, so I was glad that she forwarded the photographic evidence.
Yeah, the photograph is crazy. We will post it on our socials.
So he
to
looks so
demonstrate.
scary in this picture.
Well, he looks very scary. I mean, there's definitely, I was saying, there's like a weird racial undercurrent of just not an undercurrent, just racism in the whole documentary. And Oregon was like a white flight colony, basically, originally, in like a sundown town, which is where they just threaten to kill you if you're not white and you're in town after sundown. So it is totally not far-fetched that the Nike guy could be a racist, because he also supports this. He gives all the money to the group to like drive the cult out.
Yeah, he throws his sneaker fortune behind the 1,000 Friends of Oregon. Which is very sinister now sounding, the 1,000 Friends of Oregon. Just 1,000. I think I've just noticed all these like with this, what were you saying? The school of like psychological welfare? The school of practical philosophy, rather. I think the more generic the name, the more afraid we should be, is what the Cambridge Analytica scandal has taught me. Well, I mean, this entire, I haven't actually done any research to follow up on this. I trust a lot of, I believe that Mrs. Footer did her due diligence on this. It does sort of remind me of the whole Procter & Gamble thing that was like the big conspiracy when we were kids, that like Procter & Gamble was a satanic organization. What? This is like a classic urban legend. This is like, do you know what I'm talking about? I don't know. Oh my God. Maybe this is some cool Midwest Satanism that you need to hit us with. No, this is actually when I was in Washington State that this was. Oh, it's that cool Pacific Northwest Satanism that ties right into this.
Very different kind of Satanism.
There's like a logo
regional
for
Satanism.
Procter & Gamble that was like a bull that had supposedly you could see the number 666 in it. And it was like, there was all this. I mean, there's, I feel like I saw it referenced in a comic or something, like maybe like an old Optic Nerve or something. It's like it feels maybe it's like a West Coast crazy person thing. I've never heard that one.
There was there's a branch of University of Massachusetts, UMass Dartmouth, that the rumor was that the guy the architect who designed it was a Satanist, and that he put like all this like iconography into his design for the campus. And so I used to go there in the summer as a kid, because they would do outdoor musicals there. And so, me and all the other kids would be like, all freaking each other out. And then I went back as like a sort of adult just to be like, how real could that be? Because the big rumor was that there were benches, huge like rows of benches that were in 666 all across campus. And there are.
Whoa.
They're really? Actually real.
Wait, are they forming the numbers 666? Yeah. Oh my God.
And I feel like some of that Freemasonry stuff is real. Like Washington, D.C., it just is definitely like some of these things were designed by people that were like, we are summoning the overlords with our architectural city planning. Well, I was very interested in all of this stuff, and I found out another thing that I sort of had remembered, but in an earlier episode, we're talking about the Aldi and Trader Joe's brothers, who were in the SS.
Previously in Nazis on Night Call.
And then I remembered that the brothers who founded Adidas and Puma, who were also German brothers who founded rival sportswear companies, were also maybe in the SS. Wow. So I don't know what this says about streetwear shoes and Nazism. But
it definitely says, though, that the way to keep your brothers from feuding is to have them make documentaries, because you can pack 6 into a documentary, but all of the brothers we've studied, the German entrepreneurs, all feud. It's an interesting study, guys.
Well, we'll post the picture just for spooky photographic evidence of.
It looks kind of like a swastika. I mean,
it looks like a fan. It looks like a rotating fan, but it also kind of looks like a swastika.
That's what they're. Yeah,
we'll have to do a poll.
No, I want to see it.
Here. I'm sure it's
Oh yeah,
Guys, I mean, it's a swastika.
That doesn't look great. Yeah,
it's unfortunate. It's like sometimes I'll be like, I feel like I feel like there are a lot of ceilings where you tend to see something like that, and you are like, oh my God, what's up with this building? But that's more subtle than this. Like,
if you know anything about the occult history of Nike or any other companies, and you want to tell us about
there goes our Nike sponsorship.
or they'll pay us a lot to bury this story forever. Just
give us a call at 1240-469. Put your voice on the record, or you can put it through a modulator. It's fine. Or you can email us at nightcallpodcast@gmail.com.
And we won't reveal your identity.
Unless you want us to, in which case we will.
Yeah.
Well, that does it for this week's Night Call. I want to thank Richard for joining us this week.
Thank you for having me. It was spooky.
We're on a run of spooky episodes. I wonder when we'll have a non-spooky episode.
And now I want some.
I don't think we can.
It's just that it's Night Call. I mean, it has that kind of
it's supposed
witchy
to be.
vibe to it. But I'm now kind of scared of rotten kombucha. I'm scared of it, the regular kind.
It's,
but
it's kind of like our only form of Russian roulette. It's the only way that we can really feel like the thrill of mortality.
Didn't somebody die from eating like raw milk recently?
I feel like that happens every year in Santa Monica or Malibu or something. That's like Lyme disease. It's just like it's one of those things.
Guys, vet your cult leaders before you join the cult.
But everybody should go check out Richard's book. All We Can Do Is Wait, which is in bookstores everywhere right now, wherever you buy books. Do you want to give us? Do you have a spiel at this point?
Yes, it's 5 teenagers go to a hospital after a bridge collapse. It's The Breakfast Club meets Grey's Anatomy.
That's great.
That was an airtight pitch.
Yeah.
That was great.
And Richard is just a fabulous writer in general. He is like one of my favorite critics. I'm not just saying that because he's in the booth with us right now. So definitely read his work.
No, we're all big fans of Richard. We're very excited to have you on the show.
And I of you.
And congratulations on your great new profile picture.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. If you guys will have to have me back when I inevitably change it back to Neil Hamburger.
Okay. When you've decided that the flood in your DMs is too much and you have to shut it down. Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for listening to this week's Night Call. You can follow us on Twitter at Night Call Pod, Facebook at Night Call Podcast, and Instagram at Night Call Podcast. And as always, leave us a call at 240-46-NIGHT.
And if you're enjoying the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.